Welcome to Basics Parliamentarian. This workshop focuses on the duties of the PTA parliamentarian, as well as the basic parliamentary procedure used in effective meetings. We will cover the basic information that every parliamentarian needs to understand in order to support your PTA, both in and outside of meetings. We will review the qualities that every parliamentarian should have, identify the duties of the parliamentarian, help you to understand basic parliamentary procedure. Specifically, we will cover motions, the 8 necessary steps involved in every motion, the rules of debate, how and when amendments are made, types of voting, and election of the nominating committee and of officers. Let's discuss the qualities necessary for every parliamentarian. A parliamentarian must remain impartial throughout the entire meeting. They must maintain adherence to the governing documents and ensure that all are treated with fairness and equity. Every parliamentarian must have a basic familiarity with Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, or RONR, which is the parliamentary authority adopted for all PTAs. You use this reference when your bylaws or standing rules do not have the rule you need to apply. A parliamentarian must be familiar with the governance documents of the PTA. This includes the bylaws of your PTA, as well as those of Texas PTA and National PTA. The bylaws are the basic rules of the association. The standing rules, if your PTA has adopted them. These are the rules that relate to the administration of your PTA. The Texas PTA Standards of Continuing Affiliation, which apply to every local and council PTA in Texas. A parliamentarian cannot be expected to know every word of these documents, but it's important they know where to find the necessary information. The parliamentarian does not take an active role in the decision-making process. The only time a parliamentarian speaks is when given the floor by the president to explain parliamentary procedures or cite wording from the bylaws or standing rules. A parliamentarian's role is that of advisor, and it's not a position in which everyone will be comfortable. You may have been wondering, what is my job? You start with the bylaws, where you'll find the basic duties. As we've already stated, you will act as an advisor in all meetings. You will serve as an ex officio member of any committees that review and purpose amendments to the governing documents. What does ex officio mean? An ex officio member can attend meetings, make motions, debate, and vote, but he is not counted in the quorum. You will not serve as a committee chair, since the parliamentarian is not able to make motions or debate in executive board and membership meetings. You will schedule the first meeting of the nominating committee and provide the committee members with the information they need for the nomination and election processes. And finally, to protect your position of impartiality, you will vote only when the vote is being conducted by ballot. There may be additional duties assigned in your PTA's standing rules. How do you get your position? According to the bylaws, the newly elected president appoints the parliamentarians subject to approval of the newly elected officers. The parliamentarian is not slated by the nominating committee nor elected by the membership. If, for any reason, the president is unable to appoint a parliamentarian, or after a successful appointment you are unable to attend meeting, the chair should appoint someone to fulfill the duties of the position at every meeting. You will hear the terms president and chair used interchangeably in this workshop. While the president is the PTA position that usually conducts the meeting, the president is, in fact, serving as the chair of or chairing the meeting. There may be times when the president is not available and another officer will chair the meeting. No matter who is the chair, someone needs to assist the chair in staying on task, according to the agenda, and reminding them of the rules. Not everything is written in the bylaws. Texas PTA provides the Basics Parliamentarian Resource Guide, which has the additional information for this position. This guide can be downloaded from the Texas PTA website. Let's look at what the parliamentarian does beyond what is written in the bylaws. The parliamentarian confers with the chair prior to the meeting. An effective strategy would be for the chair to send the proposed agenda to the parliamentarian, and for the parliamentarian to look at the minutes of the previous meeting and the bylaws to make sure that all necessary business is included in the proposed agenda. The chair and the parliamentarian can then meet to discuss how to handle the individual agenda items and any potential issues that may arise. The chair should warn the parliamentarian about any anticipated controversy and ask the parliamentarian to help with any procedures that would be necessary to follow, such as a ballot vote. The parliamentarian prepares for each meeting by bringing resources and materials to the meetings. The resources will include all governing documents, bylaws, standing rules, policies, and procedures, as well as Robert's Rules of Order newly revised. It's best to confirm that you have the last adopted and approved versions of the bylaws and standing rules. You can request copies on the Texas PTA website. Remember, these are the documents approved by the members, so all members, in addition to the members of the Executive Board, should have access to these documents. Consult with the President to determine the best ways to distribute or provide access to these documents. In addition to these references, be prepared with blank pieces of paper or index cards to use as ballots, a ballot box, and blank teller's reports. In order to be available to the President during the meeting, the parliamentarian should sit close by so that he can consult with the chair during the meeting. One way to be helpful yet not intrusive is to prepare cards with standard reminders, such as the type of vote, majority, two-thirds, plurality, etc., the type of motion, main, amendment, recess, etc., or action required, second, debate, restate the motion, etc. These cards can be quietly placed in front of the chair as reminders. It's very easy to forget a step in the procedure, and one of the parliamentarian's responsibilities is to keep the chair on task. One of the cards should be to pause and consult, which will allow the parliamentarian to bring something to the attention of the chair that needs to be explained or corrected. If signal cards aren't used, slips of paper or post-it notes can be used. Whatever method is used, be sure that it is one that the President is comfortable with. Your job is to make the process easy and simple, and to support the chair's authority in a meeting. Parliamentarian advises the President on points of parliamentary procedure. An experienced parliamentarian will often see a problem developing and be able to prevent it before it occurs. It could be anything from noticing that the members are confused about what is happening to maintaining a list of members who wish to speak or who have already spoken twice on the motion to recommending a rule to limit debate based on the lateness of the hour. In a case where the parliamentarian thinks that the chair has incorrectly followed procedure, it could be harmful, personally and professionally, for the parliamentarian to appear to be correcting the chair's actions or words. Remember, while the parliamentarian can bring a situation to the attention of the chair decides how they will proceed. The choice is in the hands of the chair, and only a member can directly challenge the chair, using the motion to appeal from the decision of the chair. The parliamentarian cannot speak to the assembly without the permission of the chair. Even if a member asks the parliamentarian a question, the chair must grant them permission to speak. If allowed to answer a question, the parliamentarian should only address issues of procedure or questions relating to the PTA's governing documents. A parliamentarian should not give an opinion. The parliamentarian has the same duty as the President to maintain a position of impartiality and therefore does not make motions, participate in debate, or vote except when the vote is by ballot. They do not cast a deciding vote. Only the President has the ability to do so. The position of parliamentarian can be very difficult. You should not take the position if you feel you must share your opinion on the issues being addressed by the Executive Board. Unlike the presiding officer, the parliamentarian cannot temporarily relinquish his position in order to exercise such rights on a particular motion. According to the Texas PTA Standards of Continuing Affiliation, each PTA must review the bylaws and standing rules, if adopted, at least every 3 years and submit them to Texas PTA for approval. According to the bylaws, the parliamentarian serves on the committee to review these documents and propose any necessary amendments. The bylaws and standing rules must always reflect your PTA's needs and actual practices. The president should appoint a review committee on a regular basis. The parliamentarian serves as an ex officio member, but does not chair this committee. No matter whether amendments are proposed and adopted or not, the 3-year submission to Texas PTA indicating that your bylaws have been reviewed must be followed. Procedures for amending these documents are found in the Basics Parliamentarian Resource Guide and on the Texas PTA website. Let's take some time to talk about the governing documents and compare the bylaws to the standing rules. Bylaws are the document adopted by an organization which contain the basic rules for governing that organization. They are always superior to and supersede the standing rules and the parliamentary authority. That means that they are higher in the hierarchy of rules you will follow. Always look first in your PTA's bylaws for an answer to any question, then in the standing rules if adopted, and finally in Robert's Rules of Order newly revised. Texas PTA provides the required bylaws template for all PTAs. Only information specific to your PTA can be changed. Use the Texas PTA Bylaws Snapshot Worksheet as a quick reference to those items that can be personalized to your PTA, such as the amount of your local dues, number of vice presidents, etc. The bylaws may be amended at any membership meeting provided notice has been given, a quorum is present, 2/3 of the members present, and voting approve the amendments. The notice must be provided 30 days prior to the meeting, at which the amendments will be presented for approval, and must include the existing wording and the proposed wording. This notice may be provided at a previous meeting or using the regular communication methods. Any changes go into effect only after approval, first by the members and finally by Texas PTA. Bylaws cannot be suspended. What is stated in the bylaws must be followed. The standing rules relate to details of administration of a group rather than to parliamentary procedure. These are usually the procedures or processes that are to be followed. There is no template provided for the standing rules, but they are the rules adopted by the membership based on need. Texas PTA does provide sample standing rules, which can be downloaded from the Texas PTA website. This document provides, and in some cases, required wording, depending on subject area of the rules. Standing rules are generally adopted as a need arises. They may be required in certain circumstances, such as when a local PTA provides scholarships, hosts a special event, or creates additional committees, and they may list duties for executive board members not covered in the bylaws. Standing rules require a majority vote for adoption, with no previous notice having been given, and can be adopted at any membership meeting. Amendments to standing rules may be made without previous notice by a 2/3 vote in the affirmative, or with a previous notice by a majority vote. Like the bylaws, standing rules must be approved by Texas PTA before going into effect. Unlike bylaws, standing rules may be suspended for the duration of a current session, a specified period of time, by a majority of the members present and voting. Standing rules cannot include wording that conflicts with or duplicates wording in the bylaws. Here's a summary of the Texas PTA Standards of Continuing Affiliation, including the requirements for active status and good standing. This document is attached to your bylaws. These requirements, including submitting membership dues and executive board contact information, filing an IRS Form 990, and reviewing your bylaws and standing rules. What you need to remember as the parliamentarian is that these requirements include a review of your bylaws and standing rules every 3 years, if not sooner. Remember, the bylaws are written according to the template from Texas PTA. Texas PTA typically adopts a new template each year, so you will want to see how those changes affect your PTA. Therefore, you should request a new copy of your bylaws from Texas PTA each August to be sure you have the latest template. As previously stated, your standing rules do not follow a template, but may need to include required wording for various situations, such as the use of a credit card or scholarship procedures. It's best to look at your standing rules every year because what you actually do should match what they say. And a fresh pair of eyes can not only find errors, but also identify the need to adjust the wording. Again, You must submit your bylaws and standing rules, if you have them, to Texas PTA every 3 years, whether you've adopted any amendments or not. Parliamentary procedure is the guideline for conducting meetings that are orderly, fair, and efficient. We use parliamentary procedure to protect the rights of every member, whether they are present at a meeting or not, whether they are in agreement with the majority or the minority. Following the same procedures at every meeting and with every member creates fairness and equality for all. It allows the membership to decide what will be discussed and for how long. It maintains the focus on the topic on the floor and avoids unnecessary confusion. It requires decisions to be made by the majority, at a minimum, and sometimes more. The order of business in a meeting is prescribed by parliamentary procedure. This specific order of business is for a membership meeting. In an executive board meeting, the order would vary slightly with the removal of the report of the executive board and the program. Knowing this order will allow the parliamentarian to anticipate times when the chair might need advice or assistance on procedures. Here are some specific points for you to understand. Call to order. The president, as the chair, calls the meeting to order. The president should declare whether or not a quorum is present, so both the members are aware and the secretary notes the fact in the minutes. Always start on time. If the secretary and/or the parliamentarian are not present, the chair appoints members to perform those responsibilities for the meeting. Opening ceremonies are optional. If an invocation is offered, the national anthem is played or sung, and the Pledge of Allegiance is recited in opening ceremonies, they should always be in that order. That is, the invocation first and the pledge last. Minutes. The chair recognizes the secretary for the reading of the minutes. The secretary stands and either reads the minutes, announces that a draft of the minutes has been distributed, or announces that the minutes were approved by the committee. The chair can either accept a motion to approve the minutes, either as presented or as amended, or use unanimous consent, which is, if there is no objection. For the current meeting, the chair may allow the membership to approve the minutes at the next meeting, or appoint a committee to approve the minutes. Committee approval is recommended when the length of time between meetings causes concern for accuracy, or they are needed quickly, and committee approval is required for the last meeting of the year. Minutes are presented at every meeting unless they were previously approved by committee. If the minutes have been approved by committee, the chair should state that a committee has approved the minutes from the prior meeting. This should be stated in the minutes. Minutes should always be available to members upon request. Financial report or report of the treasurer. A financial report is not optional and must be presented at every regular executive board and membership meeting. The period covered should be from meeting to meeting, not first of the month to the end of the month. The treasurer reads the financial report, which includes, at the least, the beginning balance, total income, total expenditures, and the ending balance. The beginning balance should match the ending balance from the previous report. The chair states that the report is filed for financial reconciliation. Letters or communications. Any relevant letters received are read to the members. Report of the Executive Board. A summary report, not the minutes, is read for the information of the members. This report should include any resignations and appointments of board members. Recommendations, in the form of motions, are voted upon one at a time. A motion from the Executive Board does not require a second. These motions may be in regards to budget amendments, any actions that the board deems necessary for the membership to approve. Reports of officers. The chair calls for any officers who have reports to provide those reports to the membership at this time. An officer report does not include a motion unless action is required. A motion from an officer requires a second unless coming from a committee. If the motion was voted on by the Executive Board, you may want to present it during that report. The chair need not recognize the officer if there is no report. Reports of standing committees. The chair calls for the report of the committee, not the chair's report. %. A report from a committee may be informational or require action, as determined by a majority vote of the committee. Reports with information only are read to the voting body. Those reports requiring action are presented as a motion to the membership, no second required, and the members vote to approve either as presented or amended or rejected. Any items brought to the Executive Board for a vote first may also be presented to the members in the Executive Board report. The member, usually the committee chair, presenting the report moves the adoption of the motion. The president conducts the vote on the motion, not the committee chair making the motion. If no recommendation is made, no motion is needed. The chair need not recognize the committee chair if there is no report. Reports of special committees. The reports of special committees follow the same rules as those for standing committees. If no special committees exist, this item of business does not appear on the agenda. Unfinished business. The chair announces but does not call for business under this item. Unfinished business consists of business left unfinished at the previous meeting or business postponed to this meeting if group meets at least quarterly. Minutes of the previous meeting should indicate any unfinished business. You will always know if there is unfinished business, so if there is none, it does not need to be on the agenda. New business. The chair calls for new business. Members may bring any new business before the association if it is within the scope of the association. A motion is necessary to introduce new items of business. Program. The chair recognizes the program's parent education chair who introduces the program. The chair does not turn the meeting over to this chair. The chair remains in control of the meeting from the call to order until adjournment. The chair may announce with the membership's consent that the meeting will be adjourned immediately following the program. Announcements. The chair should, if possible, make all announcements. Announcements include the date of the next meeting, important events and activities, etc. Adjourn. The chair asks if there is any further business. If any additional business exists, it is handled at this time. If no further business exists, then the chair declares the meeting adjourned. No motion is necessary to adjourn. Let's take a closer look at motions. A motion is the method of putting business before the assembly, or in the case of PTA, the members. Motions are used in executive board, committee, and membership meetings. You may have seen discussion occur before a motion is actually stated, but according to our parliamentary authority, Robert's Rules of Order newly revised, the order is first the motion and a second, then the debate and the vote. Motions from an individual are phrased as "I move to that," and always require a second to ensure at least one other member is interested in debating the motion. Motions coming from a committee or the executive board are phrased on behalf of or by direction of the executive board or specific committee, "I move to that," and do not require a second since a group has already demonstrated interest in discussing the motion. Remember, no business can be conducted without a quorum present. There are 8 essential steps for motions. 1. Obtaining the floor. A member rises and addresses the chair, basically asking to be recognized. 2. Assigning the floor. The chair recognizes the member and assigns the member the floor by speaking the member's name or nodding to the member. 3. Making the motion. The member introduces the motion by stating, "I move that," or "I move to." 4. Seconding the motion. Another member seconds the motion by saying, "I second the motion," or simply "second." Remember, by seconding a motion, the member is merely agreeing that the motion should come before the assembly, not that he is necessarily in favor of the motion. 5. Stating the motion. The chair formally puts the question before the assembly by stating the motion, saying, "It has been moved and seconded that." 6. Discussion or debate. The chair calls for remarks by asking, "Is there discussion?" and recognizing the maker of motion as the first speaker. Additional speakers are recognized by the chair. According to parliamentary procedure, every member has the right to speak to the motion, and no member may speak again until every member has been allowed their first opportunity to speak. Then, members can speak one more time, and that is all that is allowed. When debate seems to have ceased, the chair asks, "Are you ready for the question?" to confirm that discussion has ended. 7. Vote of putting the question. The chair then puts the question or motion before the assembly by stating, "The question is on the adoption of the motion," Then the chair calls for the vote. All those in favor say aye, those opposed say no. 8. Announce the vote. The chair states the result of the vote, saying, the ayes have it and the motion is adopted, or the noes have it and the motion is lost. What are amendments? An amendment is a motion to change the motion already stated. When are they in order, and how do they work? Before being restated by the chair, the maker of the motion has the right to modify his motion or to withdraw it entirely. After a motion is placed before the Assembly, permission from the Assembly is required to either withdraw it or modify it. This permission is most easily gained by unanimous consent. The motion to amend is used to modify the wording of the pending motion before the pending motion itself is voted upon. Members should use the proper terminology and identify the specific position in the motion where the amendment should be placed. The most common ways to amend a motion are by inserting words, sentences, or paragraphs, or by adding when the wording is at the end of a sentence or paragraph. By striking out words, sentences, or paragraphs. By striking out and inserting words, sentences, or paragraphs to replace the wording that was struck out. Only 2 amendments may be pending on a main motion at any time. The primary amendment is the first amendment made, and a secondary motion may be made that amends, not the motion, but the amendment to the motion. You address the amendments in reverse order. You first vote on the secondary amendment, the amendment to the amendment, then the primary amendment. Finally, you vote on the original motion, which may or may not have been amended. Does that sound complicated? Visualize a stack of 3 books. The stack begins with the motion on the bottom, and the primary and the secondary amendments, in that order, are stacked on top of the motion. You can't start on the bottom of the stack. You have to start with the book on top, which is the secondary amendment. Make sense? Here are the types of votes that may be taken. A voice vote is the usual method for voting on motions that require a majority vote. Unanimous consent, which is sometimes called general consent, has already been mentioned. Using this method, the chair asks the members if there is any objection to the action, such as approving the minutes. If there is no objection, then the chair states, "Hearing no objection, the minutes are approved." This is an easy way to expedite the process when there appears to be no argument against an action. However, if there is one objection, then a motion must be posed and handled in the normal fashion. Members may raise their hands or voting cards to vote. This method is often used when a 2/3 vote is needed. With a standing or rising vote, members are asked to stand to vote for or against a motion. This is another method used to visually determine a 2/3 vote. A standing counted vote is used when the outcome of the vote is in question. Members are asked stand and remain standing until notified that their vote was added to the tally of votes. In a roll call vote, each name is called, and each member's vote is stated and recorded as the vote is aye, no, or present if abstaining. The record of how each member voted is recorded in the minutes. A ballot vote may be required in the bylaws when there is more than one nominee for election to a position, or it can be requested by a member. It is often used when members want an anonymous vote. A request to vote by ballot requires a majority in favor. Please note that proxy voting is not allowed in PTA. Anytime there is a ballot vote, the president or chair appoints a tellers committee, including a chair and at least 2 tellers who distribute, collect, and count the ballots. In the case of an election vote by ballot, a nominee for an office cannot be involved in the election procedure as a teller. The Tellers Committee chair will present a Tellers Committee report with the outcome of the vote. The example on the screen of a teller's report is specific to an election. In the case of a yes-no motion, the names of the candidates would be replaced ayes and noes or the like. The Tellers Committee report states the number of votes cast, not necessarily equal to the number of members present. The number of votes needed for election or adoption, majority or 2/3 depending on the type of motion. Elections are majority. The number of ballots determined illegal, unable to be read, more names on the ballot than directed, names on the ballot who have not been nominated, 2 or more ballots folded together, and the number of votes cast for each person, or in the case of a yes-no ballot, the number of votes cast for each. The type of vote determines the number of votes needed to pass the motion. A majority vote requires more than 1/2 of the votes cast. For example, if 31 votes were cast, you would need at least 16 for the vote to carry. Majority votes are for new business items. For example, the new budget for the year is presented and adopted by majority vote. A 2/3 vote requires at least 2/3 of the votes cast for the vote to carry. If there were 30 votes cast, at least 20 would be needed to pass the motion. 2/3 votes are used to amend something that has already been adopted, such as when a budget is amended. It is also used when the rights of members are affected. For example, a motion to end debate requires a 2/3 vote to pass, since it might restrict some members from speaking a first or a second time. A tie vote brings different results based on the situation. In cases of an election where a majority is required, a vote resulting in a tie would be taken again. In the case of a motion, no matter whether a majority or a 2/3 vote is required for passage, the motion would fail and not be taken again. A plurality vote is usually designated in the bylaws. For example, in PTA, the nominating committee is elected by plurality vote. A plurality vote is used when 3 or more choices are possible, and the candidate or proposition receiving the largest number of votes achieves a plurality. It is not based on percentage, but the actual number of votes. The PTA bylaws contain provisions for emergency voting by the Executive Board. If authorized by the President, these procedures must be followed for any vote by phone, email, or other electronic method. In an emergency, the Executive Board may vote by phone, email, or other electronic methods if authorized by the President or a majority of the Executive Board. Most emergencies are items of business that need approval before the next regularly scheduled Executive Board meeting, and the President believes that no discussion will be necessary. However, emergency voting via electronic methods must be done through a process that allows all voices of the Executive Board to be heard. Executive Board members must have at least 24 hours to cast their votes. A 2/3 vote of the entire Executive Board is required for the motion to pass. No discussion is allowed. If it is determined that discussion is needed, a special meeting needs to be called and the current motion withdrawn. The chair announces the results by the same electronic method in which the vote was held. The results of the vote are recorded in the minutes of the next regular Executive Board meeting. Here are some helpful guidelines for parliamentarians while assisting with the election of the nominating committee. The nominating committee is elected per the bylaws by plurality at a membership meeting prior to the election meeting. At this meeting, be prepared to read the appropriate section from the bylaws and to assist with the voting. Remember that the President conducts the election but is not eligible to serve on this committee. The parliamentarian can be elected to this committee but cannot chair this or any PTA committee. The parliamentarian shall schedule the first nominating committee meeting and provide required information on the nomination and election process. As the parliamentarian, you should prepare a packet for the newly elected committee, which should include these documents, several of which can be found in the resource guide. Current bylaws and standing rules with the sections for elected officers and their duties noted. Sample nominating committee report. Confidentiality form. Guidelines for the nominating committee. Nominating and elections portion of Texas PTA's website. Let's review some of the important information we've discussed about serving as a parliamentarian. Try to answer these questions. 1. What do you do if the President does something wrong? Calls for the wrong type of vote, forgets to get a second on a motion, forgets to call for the vote, etc. Do whatever you've arranged in advance with the President, which might be passing a note, holding up a prearranged sign. Whisper to the President the change needed, or raise your hand and noting the necessary correction. 2. What do you do if you have an opinion to express on a motion? It is the parliamentarian's duty to remain impartial. Therefore, you cannot speak for or against a specific motion. If asked, the parliamentarian may speak only regarding parliamentary procedure. 3. How can you best support the president? Be prepared by reviewing bylaws and standing rules in advance of meetings so you can advise the president on drafting agendas and handling the business items. Arrange for an easy, discreet system to advise the president during a meeting. 4. What should you do if the membership appears confused with the procedure? Try to get the attention of the chair, president, so they can explain what is happening. If that doesn't seem possible, try to speak with the specific members who seemed confused afterward, or put an article in the next newsletter with an easy-to-understand explanation of the procedure. 5. What do you do when you don't know the procedure? Admit it and ask for time to look it up. The chair can ask for a moment to consult the rules or can move into a recess if it will take longer. The chair may also be able to move to announcements or other reports while you review the bylaws, standing rules, and/or on R. Be prepared to know how and where to look for answers. If you can't find the answer, the chair may ask permission of the members to follow a specific procedure and then follow that procedure. 6. How often do the bylaws need to be reviewed and submitted to Texas PTA? At least once every 3 years, whether or not the membership has adopted amendments. Keep in mind that every 3 years, submission and approval by Texas PTA of your bylaws and standing rules, if adopted, is according to the standards of continuing affiliation, which are attached to the bylaws and are essential for your PTA to remain in good standing. 7. How often should you request an approved copy of your bylaws from Texas PTA? Annually. The template often changes from year to year, so you always want a current copy. This also ensures any approved amendments have been submitted, as you will receive the most recent date-stamped version. While all of these can be helpful, reference your bylaws first, followed by your standing rules, and then look to Robert's Rules of Order newly revised as the parliamentary authority. Remember that Robert's Rules of Order newly revised is the only authority on parliamentary procedure that may be referenced, quoted, or followed. Other references, like the In Brief and For Dummies books, are only used for study and understanding. Texas PTA staff and volunteer leaders are here to answer any of your questions regarding your position. Our toll-free number is 1-800-TALK-PTA, or you can email us directly. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope that this training has been beneficial and it will make your work in PTA easier and more enjoyable. If you have any questions in the future, please know that your field service representative and council PTA leaders are always ready to help. Thank you for all you do for Texas PTA and the kids in your school community.